Most math teachers I know are aware of Desmos. It's a very powerful online graphing calculator, and most people use it as that, a graphing calculator. I was vaguely aware that there were activities that you could do and some way to have students interact with them. But until recently, I wasn't really sure what those were like. I hadn't used one and just didn't seem like something I wanted to spend my time figuring out. As with many of us, the online teaching happening right now due to COVID is having me have a new opportunity to figure out some new online tools. Let me show you how cool Desmos is. This is what I've transitioned to doing for almost all of my live streamed classes. So let me show you a Desmos activity that I created, and this is one that my students have already interacted with. Once you create one, you can just invite your students to join the activity. You copy it. Now let's say I'm a student, so this has been sent to me in my learning management system like Google Classrooms or Canvas or through an email. And I click on the link and I go to this activity. For a student, now I've already began this activity. So for them, it would just ask them to sign in and they'll type in their name and away they go. Again, I've already began this activity, so there's a few things already drawn here, but I could clear them. From a student's perspective, they see the activity, they see their own work, they have some slides, there's 15 slides, they can click next, and there's different types of activities here. This is a lesson that I created, and they're fairly easy to create. So the purpose of this is not to show off the lesson, it's to show you an idea of what a Desmos activity could look like for a student, and also what it looks like for a teacher. So from the student's perspective, they have a quick draw here, and they could just draw a smiley face. They could talk right here. They can click this, and it gives them a math keyboard. So in a lot of equivalent type activities, it's hard to write out math, but this gives them a nice math calculator keyboard to use, same as the one that's normally in Desmos. When they're done with that, they can scroll on here. I've linked a video for them to watch, and then they can type in their response here. I already typed in a response myself earlier. Scrolling along, again, this is another one that I've already done beforehand, but it was a sketch for them to do. And they're going to try graphing a line. So I gave them a graph to work with here, and they can just kind of graph it as they go, and blah, blah, blah. Moving along. I have it overlaid on top of the next graph for them to kind of check their answer and respond to if they made mistakes. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the types of activities that are available here. So one cool thing is that on questions, you can make it so that they will see other students' responses to the question after they've answered it themselves. That's a feature that you can turn on or off as you want it in your lesson. So this is not just the student doing this completely by themselves. You can build in interaction between other people in class. You can put the graphing calculator on here for them to type out graphs and such. So like 4x plus 2, it'll graph it. It's just the built-in Desmos graph. You can do card sort type activities pretty easily. So in this case, I'm having them drag things together that would be parallel. So dragging together things that would be parallel and moving along. Again, I linked another video. Yeah, there's also multiple choice questions. Maybe I'm going to intentionally get this one wrong. And you can have them explain their thinking and share it with the class. So again, students who answer this question, I'll say parallel lines. I'll just be like I guessed. And share that with the class. Once I've answered, I can now see some responses from other classmates. And maybe now I could go back and edit my response because maybe their thinking changed my mind. More multiple choice questions. I don't want to show you this entire activity. Let's look at what this seems like from the teacher perspective, because that's actually one of the things that I'm super impressed with. So from the teacher perspective, here's my students. I can see all of them. Notice I have actually used a feature built in here where I clicked anonymize, and it has generated random, I think mathematically related names here for these students. If I unclick anonymize, these are actual students who did this assignment a few days ago. I believe that this Diana Davis is the anonymized version of myself on the other screen. Notice that these are all of the slides. So this is the slides that have been created. I can see that one student is currently active on slide number 10, and guess who that is? If I switch back here, I'm the student right now on slide 10. So this is updated live as students are doing it. You can see which slide they're on. You can also see which slides they've already done. And look, this multiple choice question was answered wrong, so there's an X on it. If they're answered correctly, you'll get a check mark, so you can see which students have answered something wrong. What if I wanted to give this student a hint on this problem? I'm like, oh man, he got it wrong. So I can click on that slide for that student and see that student's exact responses to this question. And then this took me a while to find, but once I found it, it revolutionized how I'm using this in my live classes. I can click lesson feedback on this student's slide, and I can type some feedback to this student. I could be like, don't just guess, man. Okay. Probably not the feedback I'd give in a real class situation. But anyway, I can send that. Now watch what this looks like to the student. So I'm switching back to my student slide. Notice this blinking red feedback button up here. I can now see that the teacher has sent me a feedback, and I can click it. I can see that the teacher said, don't just guess, man, a few seconds ago, and I can tell that it's on screen 9, and I can click on that, and it will jump me directly to the slide that that feedback was based on. Pro tip if you're going to be doing this, I usually think of feedback that might be common mistakes that my students make, and I have pre-recorded responses that I have open in like a Google Doc on another tab, and I can just copy and paste those into the feedback as needed. Now, there's always some that I don't think of ahead of time, but this saves me a lot of time, and I can give quick feedback to students that's effective for the common mistakes students make in these types of problems. Now, so let's switch back to the teacher perspective. So other cool tools that you have available. So again, I can see all of my students, exactly where they are and how far they go, and this updates live. And I can see exactly which slide that student is focused on. I can see how many students and who they are on every single slide. Let's say I want to keep everybody more together so we can have some actual class discussions over Zoom. I can use the pacing feature. So I could click like from here to here, and now they're locked to they can do slides 1 through 5, and then it will stop them and they will not be able to click next until I allow it. If I jump back to being a student here, I think, I'm not sure if this will work because, yeah, this student has already passed that point, so I'm retroactively adding it in. Oh wait, no, I haven't clicked the button yet. Restrict to screen 1 through 5. Now if I jump in as this student, notice I'm on slide 5, and I cannot pass slide 5. So you can restrict where students are allowed to be if you want to keep everybody a little bit more together. You can also now edit this. You can now increase it to slide 6. So you can kind of paste them one slide at a time as you go. You can click pause if you just want to pause everybody where they're at. And then you can just click pacing again and stop the pacing if you want to get rid of that and let people work at their own pace unrestricted. Let's see some other cool things we have available. What we're looking at right now is the summary tool, where I can see all the students, all the slides, everything. What if I want to focus in on one slide and see how all of my students are doing there? Like slide 3 where they had to draw a line graph. If I click on slide 3, I can now see every student's response here, like including I see that this student said, I don't know. So I could, if I wanted to, now click on that student and give them some feedback that I could type here to hopefully give them a better idea of how to do that problem. If I notice lots of students are making mistakes, I could then pause everybody's pacing, or I could restrict them to just slide 3. Restrict to screen 3. Notice that if I jump to my student, it's now forced them to screen 3. And I could have everybody talk about this question on Zoom, and maybe I throw them into breakout rooms, something like that. Additionally, let's say I wanted them to compare two students' work. This camera icon here, I can click on these, and it's saying snapshot captured. And you could do that for any student's work on any page. You can always do a snapshot captured. Now, if I go to this Snapshots tab up here, all the snapshots I've taken in this lesson are stored here. And I can now slide them onto presentation screens. So maybe I put those 3 together, and then on it I have another presentation ready with these 2 side by side. Now, if I click Present, it's now showing these 3 together, and I can ask students to compare and contrast these or whatever question I wanted to ask. And then my next presentation has these 2 together, and I can slide between these. This would be useful in a screen share on Zoom. I think that's most of the tools I want to show you about how does the lesson actually look to students and how does it look for teachers. There's obviously more that you could do with this, but the main things I want you to know is it's basically an interactive slideshow for the students. You can bring in some other students' responses, and as a teacher, you can see where everybody's at, all of their responses, all the time, updated live, and give them feedback through the program as students work. Very cool. I don't want to get too far into anything else here, but I do want to mention that you can create these yourself, but there's also a lot available online for you to search for. So maybe before you create one yourself, you could just search for Teacher Desmos, go on here, and you could search for an activity, and you could be like, okay, I'm going to be learning about volume. Oh good, I was going to be learning about volume of cylinders. And if I click on that, I can see something published by Desmos, and the ones published by Desmos generally have much more like cool programmed interactive things than you'd probably be able to create yourself without spending a huge amount of time learning the programming language that you could learn here but don't need to. So there's some cool interactive slides and responses here, and you can slide through and see what this looks like for a student, and then if you like that activity, you could assign it and generate a single session code to use with one class, or you can actually do what I've done here, which is you can create classes so if I use these activities on a regular basis, it can keep all my stuff for period 1 group together, period 2 group together, and that's very easy to do, although it's maybe beyond the scope of this video to explain how, and you can probably figure it out for yourself. If you want to create your own, let me just show you where that is, because it took me a little bit it was a bit of a hassle for me to figure out myself. So under your activities, when you're on your Teacher Desmos, under your activities, there's the custom button. And under the custom button, you can now click new activity and you can title it and begin creating it. This video is not designed to show you everything about how to create these, but I will make a quick demonstration here just to give you an idea of what the creator tool looked like, because for a long time I was scared to try to make my own. I just used the pre-made ones or ones that other teachers in my department made. So to make these yourself, it's actually similar to creating a slideshow, and a lot of the things I thought I would have to like program or know some fancy thing to do are actually very easy to do. For example, if I wanted to do a card sort, you just slide the card sort onto the slide, and then it has card sort things. I could have images, I could have graphs. If I want a graph, I can just type the graph that I want in my graphing calculator. And once it's laid out how I like, I just click done, and that graph is now one of the cards for the card sort. For images, you could upload an image, and you can also do text boxes, and you can create an answer key so that on your teacher dashboard, you'll get a X or a check mark for students who have done the problem right or wrong. Again, you can add more slides up here. So you can have as many slides as you want. And you can add in and lay things out. Let's say that you want to have a sketch. So a sketch is just a place where students can sketch. You could change the background to be a graph that they work on, and maybe you also ask them a multiple choice question about that, and you can kind of drag things around and lay them out on the page. If you want to see what this would look like for a student, you just click preview at any point, and you can see what your slideshow is looking like from the student perspective. Obviously, I'm not getting into all the details of how to create this, but I want to show you that it's basically equivalent to dragging and dropping things into a PowerPoint presentation or something along those lines. I'm going to end the video here. It's getting a little bit long, and you can always let me know if you have questions about any of this.